Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. Halloween is a great holiday. It's great for kids because they can dress up and go out for candy. It's also great for adults because it allows them to revisit scares from their childhood. Some years ago, Jaime too did some videos covering the various scares from our childhood. You can check them out in the links down below. In honor of the season, I decided to make my own list called The 13 Terrifying Scares from the Past. Let the countdown begin. Number 13. The Stranger from the Smurfs Christmas Special. I know what you're thinking. Seriously, Joe? You're starting the list off with a Christmas special? Hear me out. The stranger isn't your stereotypical Christmas villain who only wants to ruin Christmas. In the special, he sent out wolves to overturn a sleigh containing a grandfather and his grandkids. Why? Because he wants to capture the children to get back at their uncle the Baron. What did he do? The stranger only says that the Baron's goodness prevented him from doing his evil deeds. For some reason, he couldn't capture the kids when the sleigh overturned. He needed Gargamel to do that. The special never says who or what the stranger is, but it does give a hint. You see, at one point, he tells Gargamel and the children he is taking them to his home. He performs a spell that causes fire to encircle them. He's either a demon or the devil himself, and he was going to drag them to hell. What makes the stranger scary is that he wanted to drag two innocent children down to hell in a Christmas special. I always thought it was clever how the special never tells you who he is, adding to his creepiness, because what you don't know is scarier than what you do know. Number 12. The Big Ben scene from The Great Mouse Detective. Originally, I was going to put Fidget capturing Faversham in this spot. That scene always scared me as a kid, especially when you first see his face. I decided against it because outside the scenes where he's capturing Faversham and later his daughter, he's not really a scary character. He's more of a goofball. The real scary character is his boss Ratigan. You wouldn't think that by the way he looks and acts. He's smart, charming, and funny. Throughout the movie, it seemed like there was something dark within him that he tries to keep at bay. Sure, he uses his intellect for crime and he kills his men without hesitation, but it seems like he was trying to keep his worst side at bay. Whenever someone calls him a rat, he gets pretty mad. Even though he's smiling after Basil calls him a sewer rat, you can tell by the way he closes his watch that inside he wants to kill him. Then comes the Big Ben scene. Ratigan snaps due to his great plan being stopped once again by Basil, allowing his inner rat to surface. As he climbs up Big Ben, his appearance becomes more rat-like. When he finally reaches the top, there's no master plan, elaborate trap, or witty remarks. All he wants to do is kill Basil in the most brutal way possible. The fight between Basil and Ratigan is one of the most intense scenes in a Disney movie. Even though there's no blood, you can feel Basil's pain when Ratigan claws him. Beware of the charming and intelligent ones, kids, for there may be a monster within. Number 11. The illustrations from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Like many kids, I used to check these books out from the library. My sister and I used to read these stories out loud to try to scare each other. The stories, while scary, one of the scariest things about the books. Some, like the big toe, was more gross than scary. The scariest part was the illustrations. Each one is guaranteed to keep you up at night. Even the ones for the funny stories. The one that scared me the most as a kid was this one from the haunted house. It's looking right at you. Ugh. As scary as the illustrations were, some didn't make sense for the story they accompanied. Like this one from Oh Susanna. How does this relate to the story? In 2011, the publishers released an edition of the books with new illustrations. That didn't last very long. Number 10. The Panther from Garfield in the Rough. For a cartoon that's meant to make us laugh, Garfield has sure produced many scares. There's that storyline from the strip where he might be dead, killing that old woman and Garfield his 9 lives, and the ghost pirates from the Halloween special. There's one scare that gets overlooked. The Panther from Garfield in the Rough. All good scares rely on build-up and delivery in order to work. This special does a fantastic job at building up the Panther. We first see it at the campgrounds. Then we learn that Dickie Beaver is the only one to see it and live. And as Garfield and Odie run to their campsite, we are treated with nightmarish images and that song, Run Run, I'm Afraid. Finally, the Panther appears at their campsite. What makes the Panther so scary is that, unlike Garfield, it behaves like a real animal. It cannot be reasoned with, so if it wants to kill you, you're dead. Unlike the ghost pirates, there's way more build-up to the Panther's appearance, allowing the viewer more time to anticipate. Also, its yellow eyes. Dickie is right. They seem to be staring right into your soul. Number 9. The Tale of Old Man Corcoran from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Everybody has that one episode from Are You Afraid of the Dark that scared them as a kid. Most people pick the Tale of Laughing in the Dark as the scariest episode. I admit that it's scarier than Stephen King's It, but I don't think it's the scariest. That honor goes to the Tale of Old Man Corcoran. The story is about 2 brothers named Jack and Kenny, who just moved into a new neighborhood. They meet a group of kids who have a strange love of playing hide-and-seek in the cemetery late at night. One kid, Sissy Vernon, doesn't want the brothers to join the group, so she tells them that the cemetery is haunted by Old Man Corcoran. The brothers do find Old Man Corcoran, but it turns out he's still alive. It was the kids who were the ghost. This ending changes the way you see the characters. Marshall, the leader of the group, seemed friendly because he wanted the brothers to join. But now we know he just wanted to kill them. He most likely killed the other kids to play hide and seek. Sissy Vernon, who we thought was a jerk, was actually trying to protect the brothers. This episode is a great reminder that looks can be deceiving. Number 8. Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We expect judges to be fair, because they can make decisions that affect our lives. If you have to go before Judge Doom, you might as well make out your will. With him, you don't even get the courtesy of a trial. You are guilty in his eyes of whatever crime you committed, and your sentence is death. The most disturbing scene in the movie is when he took that cute little shoe and dipped it in front of a cop and a detective. It's pretty frightening to think there's someone out there with that kind of power. What's worse is that Doom knows that Roger is innocent because he's the one who killed Marvin Acme. The big twist is that Judge Doom is a toon, the one who killed Eddie's brother. I can never decide which appearance is scarier, his human appearance or after he's unmasked. During one convention, someone in the audience told Christopher Lloyd that he gave so many people nightmares because of his performance as Judge Doom. He took a lot of pride in that. I think he deserves to feel proud. Number 7. The Werecats from Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. If a monster is on Scooby-Doo, you can bet it's a guy in the mask. Every so often, a real one pops up. None were worse than the Werecats. Much like a Batman villain, the Werecats have a sympathetic backstory. Simone and Lena were just settlers who were trying to live their lives, until Morgan Moonscore came and killed their people. To seek revenge, they prayed to their cat god, who gave them the ability to become Werecats. In seeking revenge, Simone and Lena become cursed to have to feed off people in order to stay alive. We've heard plenty of stories where somebody becomes a monster, the most famous being the Wolfman. What makes Lawrence Talbot different is that he never sought to become a werewolf. He's disgusted with himself over the terrible things he does in wolf form. Simone and Lena, on the other hand, wanted to become Werecats. Sure, Morgan Moonscore and his men wronged them, but they could have just ended it there. Instead, they spent centuries luring people to their island so they can kill them and remain immortal. There's no reasoning with them. Lena at one point told Fred she liked him, but that didn't stop her from trying to kill him. In a Scooby-Doo movie! What makes the Werecats scary is that they aren't just ladies in masks or a result of swamp gas. They're real. Number 6. Mr. Dark from Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's always fun when the carnival comes to town. The rides, the games, the food, the fulfillment of your deepest desires. That last one is only granted by the carnival run by Mr. Dark. We all want something we can't have, which is why people like Mr. Dark exist. With his carnival, Mr. Dark promises to give you your heart's desire, only there's a hidden cost. Want to be young again? You got it. All it costs you is your sight. Want your lost limbs back? Here you go. Now you have to relive your childhood. This is what makes Mr. Dark so dangerous. He is able to get at your deepest desires. Much like Ratigan, he can seem charming. He speaks rather poetic, and he dresses nice. Sort of like how a scammer tries to lure you by doing all sorts of fancy stuff. If you cross Mr. Dark, he can send spiders to your room. He can even make the simple act of tearing pages out of a book seem intense. When someone can do that, you know they're trouble. Number 5. The Greedy from Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. We sadly lost the great Richard Williams this year. He left behind an impressive legacy of animation with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the 1971 A Christmas Carol, The Thief and the Cobbler, and Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. Okay, so that last one isn't a masterpiece. Even Williams would admit that. But still, it's one of those movies where, once you've seen it, you'll never forget it. The most memorable character from it happens to be the scariest. The Greedy. The Greedy lives in the Taffy Pit, or more accurately, he's part of the Taffy Pit. Because he's a liquid, the Greedy is able to change his appearances with ease, each one being the stuff of nightmares. As scary as his appearances are, They're not why he's on this list. You see, he's always hungry, so he has to keep eating. He is unable to feel satisfied until he finds a sweetheart. Because she's an idiot, Raggedy Ann lets slip that she has a candy heart. The greedy wants her heart so bad that he's willing to cut it out of her. We usually associate candy with something positive, like trick-or-treating, the Candyland board game, and a treat for eating your peas. But here it's used to represent greed and how destructive it could be, which is why it's one of the 7 deadly sins. Number 4. The Chamberlain from the Dark Crystal. The Skeksis are a creepy lot, but the Chamberlain is in a different category. He's neither the strongest Skeksi nor the toughest, but he is clever. We see this when he tries to convince Jen and Kira he's their friend so he could regain his position. The Netflix series takes this even further by showing him convince the Gelflings that one of their own is a murderer. Basically, the Chamberlain is a crooked politician, but that's not why he's on the list. He's on the list because of his whimper. I'm not sure what it is. There's just something about it that's scary. When I first heard it, I thought it made him sound like a child molester. The more I listen to it, the more I think it's like he's showing how he's up to no good all the time. Never underestimate him or his whimper. Number 3. The Spider Witch from Ghostbusters, the video game. Ghostbusters has given us a lot of great scares over the years. There have been so many, it was hard to choose which one to put on this list. I decided to go with the Spider Witch because she's unlike most ghosts we've seen from Ghostbusters. Back in the 1920s, Evelyn Lewis lived on the 12th floor of the Sedgwick Hotel. A follower of Ivo Shandor, Evelyn would lure men to her room where she would murder them. Then she'd hang their bodies upside down and drain their blood like a spider. Now a ghost, she was turned into a human spider by Shandor. Although she's not the hardest boss, the Spider Witch is the scariest. First, you are cut off from the rest of the team, with only Egon as your companion. Then you have to walk through a web-covered part of the hotel. Then you enter her room to see the hanging bodies. Makes me scared to think what she did to them. And finally, you face the Spider Witch herself. She has the ability to disappear and reappear out of nowhere. If you want to cure yourself of your arachnophobia, this boss fight is for you. Number 2. The Help Me scene from The Fly. The Fly has to be the greatest experiment gone wrong movie ever made. For those who've never seen it, the movie is about a woman named Helene who is questioned by a police inspector and her brother-in-law Francois for the murder of her husband Andre. She explains that Andre was experimenting with a teleportation machine when a fly entered with him, causing the two to exchange parts. She only killed Andre because the fly side was starting to take over. Naturally, Francois and the inspector don't believe her until they see the fly caught in a spider's web. This is perhaps the most famous scene in the movie, having been parodied on The Simpsons and The Emperor's New Groove. The reason it's so famous is because how disturbing it is. It plays off our fear of spiders with this close-up. Ugh. Then there's the fact that the fly is able to yell, "Help me!" and is aware of what's about to happen, meaning that the fly is becoming more human. What makes this scene scary is the helplessness of the situation. There is no way to stop the spider from eating the fly. Even if there was, it doesn't have its body to go back to. So the inspector gave it a merciful death, with the aid of a rock. It also makes you wonder, what would you have done in Francois and the inspector's shoes? Would you have done the same thing, or would you have tried to find another way? It's not an easy question to answer, which is very scary. Number 1. Lampwork's transformation from Pinocchio. Leonard Maltin once called Pinocchio the darkest movie Walt Disney ever made. And I agree with him. The reason why I agree with him is 2 words. Pleasure Island. Seeing all those boys turned into donkeys and being boxed up to be sold is a disturbing image. An even more disturbing image is seeing Lampwork turn into a donkey. What makes this scene work is that it starts off pretty funny. First, we see an unaware Lampwork grow donkey ears in the tail, causing Pinocchio to give up smoking and drinking. I am so glad I never smoked or drank. Then he gets a donkey face and asks, "What do I look like? A jackass?" Once he looks in the mirror, it's no longer a laughing matter. Lampwick freaks out and yells for help. He even gets down on his hands and knees and begs Pinocchio for help. Then his hands turn into hooves. He yells for his mom, only to lose his voice. Now a donkey, Lampwick wrecks the pool hall. Even now this scene is hard to watch. It's like watching a loved one descend into madness and knowing that there's nothing you can do to stop it. Lampwick's transformation has a lot in common with the Help Me scene from The Fly. Both involved characters who've lost their humanity. Both are pleading for help to people who can do nothing to help them. As tragic as Andre's fate is, at least he had a loving wife, a great son, an awesome brother, a successful career, and plenty of money. He was also granted a quick end to his suffering. Lampwick was only a child. Sure, he was a troublemaker, but with the right guidance, he could have turned out to be a great adult. The coachman took that away from him. The scary part is, we know what his fate will be, and unlike Andre, it won't be a quick end. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section some great scares that didn't make the list. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.